Good afternoon, everyone. Today we will continue our discussion last time. And last time I already discussed about the pre-use evaluation. Today we will continue about the whilst use evaluation. Whilst use evaluation, it involves measuring the value of materials while using them or while observing them being used, so similar to formative assessment. So the teacher observes and measures how well the students work on while using these materials. So it can be more objective and reliable than pre-use evaluation because in pre-use evaluation, the only measurement is only prediction. So limited only to measuring what is observable, for example, are the instructions clear to the learners, and cannot claim to the measure what is happening in the learner's brain. So it can only measure what can be seen or heard in the process, not what's going on inside the learner's mind. It can also measure short-term memory through observing learner performance on exercises. So the teachers can see how students understand and remembers the lesson during class. For example, answering exercises and question and answer right after the discussion. But it cannot measure durable and effective learning because of the delayed effect of instruction. So it cannot show whether a student can remember or apply what they have learned after a few days or weeks because learning sometimes takes time to achieve. Very useful also but dangerous too, as teachers and observers can be misled by whether the activity seems to work or not. So what you see from your observation is not what really happening for in the students. So they might mistakenly think that the material is effective when it only appears at that moment. So what does it measure? It measures clarity of instruction, clarity of layout, comprehensibility of text, credibility of task, achievability of task, achievement of performance objectives, and potential for localization. Also, the practicality of the materials, teachability of the materials, flexibility of the materials, appeal of the materials, motivating power of the materials, impact of the materials, and effectiveness in facilitating short-term learning. And last evaluation, we have the post-use evaluation, the most valuable but least administered type of evaluation as it can measure the actual effects of the materials on the users. So it is like a summative evaluation where it assesses the effect of materials used in the students. So valuable but least administered because of time constraints sometimes. It can measure the short-term effect as regards motivation, impact, achievability, instant learning, etc. And it can measure the long-term effect as regards durable learning and application. What important question it answers? So first, what do learners know which they did not know before starting to use the materials? So what new knowledge students have learned from the materials they use? Second, what do the learners still know despite using the materials? So they are identifying what the students still don't understand after the lesson or activity. Third, what can the learners do which they could not do before starting to use the material? So it focuses on the skills and abilities gained by the students with the use of materials. What can the learners still not do despite using the materials? So it is identifying what skills or tasks still students struggle with after using the materials. So to what extent have the materials prepared the learners for the examinations? So checking whether the materials really help the learners to be ready for their tests or assessment. To what extent have the materials prepared the learners for their post-course use of the target language? So it looks at the materials whether it really helps students use what they have learned in real-life settings after the discussion or a lesson. What effect have the materials had on the confidence of the learners? So it looks whether the materials help the students feel more confident in what they have learned. Second, what effect have the materials had on the motivation of the learners? So, checking if the materials inspired or encourage the students to learn more. And to what extent have the materials helped the learners to become independent learners? So, it examines whether the materials train the students to learn by their own without much depending on their teachers. Did the teachers find the materials easy to use? So it checks if the materials are user friendly for teachers, whether if teachers can easily understand, prepare, and use the lessons or the materials during their lessons without much confusion or difficulties. Did the materials help the teachers to cover the syllabus? So checks if the materials are complete and aligned with the topics or lessons that must be taught within a specific time. And did the administrators find the materials help them to standardize the teaching in their institution? So it focuses on school or institution's perspective, whether the materials are consistent across different classes or teachers. Ways of measuring the post-use effects of materials include tests of what has been taught by the materials, tests of what the students can do, examinations, interviews, and questionnaires. Ways of measuring the post-use effects of materials include criterion reference evaluations by the users. So, criterion reference, it is evaluating the materials based on specific standards or goals. So, it focuses on student to how they will meet the expected outcomes. Post-course diaries, it is writing reflections about the learning experiences. It could be the teacher or the students after completing a lessons or subject. Post-course shadowing of the learners. So shadowing, it is observing the learners after they finish the course or lessons to see how well they can use what they have learned outside or in an authentic way. And lastly, we have the post-course reports, which involves getting feedback from people who interact with the learners. For conclusion, materials evaluation is initially a time consuming and difficult undertaking. It means that evaluating learning materials takes a lot of time and effort, especially at beginning. So it is not an easy task because it involves careful study and observations to your learners. So approaching in the principled, systematic, and rigorous way suggested above can not only help to make and record vital discoveries about the materials being evaluated, but can also help the evaluation to learn a lot about the materials, about learning and teaching about themselves. Doing evaluations formally and rigorously can also eventually contribute to the development of ability to conduct principled informal evaluations quickly and effectively when the occasion demands. Needless to say, evaluation is demanding but rewarding. So, using it in a principled, systematic, and careful way can lead to discoveries also could be for the learning of the students. So, practicing formal and careful evaluations eventually develop the skills to evaluate materials quickly and effectively, even in informal occasions. So, that's all for my presentation. Thank you.